So as the president, and this is a question that I've given some thought to, and I'm sure you have too, what benefit does being an ISB member bring?
Well, let's keep this kind of brief.
Sure.
So first off, you're the member of an organization that is solely centered on the benefit of what you do, your instrument, and making it the best it can be. So, you have this Bass World, a journal that doesn't have 2 articles devoted to the bass. Mm-hmm. It's all about the bass. So you get articles about great bass players, about great bass teachers. You get, sometimes there'll be, here are 5 different ways to play the hard lick in Mozart 35, or things like that. As a society, it offers a lot of member benefits, many of which have become more useful since we've been able to add technology to them. So, of course, we have our member database that, as a member, you get access to. So if you're going to France and you want the address of a bass player in France who you might be able to borrow a bass from or who might be able to help you give a master class, you have that. We just added a teacher's directory. Mm-hmm. So if you're a student who lives somewhere not near a major city and you're trying to find a bass teacher, one way you might go about it is joining the International Society of Bassists, and you can look at the teacher directory. We just added a luthier directory, which is going to be fantastic once all of our members start to take part of that. Another thing that's online now is you can have access to all of the bass worlds going back to the first volume when Gary Carr was president. So you can download that and read the first issue of the Journal of the International Society of Bassists.
Oh, that is cool. When did that become available? That must be fairly recent.
We're terrible salespeople because that's actually been online for about 7 or 8 years now.
What? Really?
Called the George Vance Library. So when you log in under members only, you can look at, in addition to the old Bass World, you can also download all the convention programs.
Oh, cool.
So you could see, who was at the New York convention, who was at the Los Angeles convention, who were the advertisers for the Los Angeles convention. A couple other business things, as a member of the ISB, you get a discount on your instrument insurance. Mm-hmm. The ISB is a knowledge base of traveling with your double bass. So there are a couple of documents that are online that as a member you can download that have the latest FAA regulations and lots of, just best practices for how do you travel with a bass.
Yeah.
If you're traveling with a bass in a trunk, what are the best things to say when you get to the counter? What are the best things to do before you leave the airport after you've gotten your bass from the guys that are wheeling around the trunk or things like that? If you're traveling with a bow in a case, what's the latest on traveling with a musical instrument as your carry-on or things like that? So those are some of the things. Also now the ISB, Kristen Korb started a great page, the ISB Connect.
Yeah.
There are lots of social features on that. They now have, as part of the ISB Connect, this ISB Hub, where it's a member benefit where, if you're playing some concerts or something like that, you could go in and enter your concert information into the hub. So now people in your area that might be members of the ISB or not members of the ISB that want to see where are some good bass-friendly concerts, they might see your concert being listed. Another member benefit is the classified, so bases for sale. Now, even though this is kind of a small thing, when you advertise your bass for sale with the ISB, the only people who see it are bass players.
Yeah.
So think about buying a classified ad in the Chicago Tribune or something like that. Even though there are 1 million people that might read that, maybe there are 300 people on any given Sunday that might be bass players that might be in the market for a bass at that time. When you list a bass for sale on the ISB, the only people that are looking in the classifieds for basses for sale are bass players looking for basses.
Yeah.
So, that's a great thing. And, of course, we have the ISB store, which although anybody can shop there, if you put out a CD, and most of us now, we record CDs. They're like glorified business cards.
Right.
We hand them out at our shows and things like that. But the ISB has an ISB store. So if you don't want to be in the business of selling your CD, if you were a member, you could send a couple of CDs to the ISB. The ISB would take a small portion, but most of the cost of the sale would come back to you. Most of the profits would come back to you. So that's just some of the things. And to me, obviously, we already talked at length about the convention. Mm-hmm. But just going to the convention, get a chance to hear Edgar Meyer play and then talk to him for 10 minutes. see Lynn Seaton give a master class or work with the young bassists.
Yeah.
As a violinist, you would be hard-pressed to rub shoulders with their royalty as easily as it is in the bass community.
Right. Yeah. It's not just something that's partially, it's sort of like the nature of bass players. It's just and it's really cool to be able to see all these people. And it's amazing. You know, you mentioned earlier about how much more seriously your students ended up taking the bass after that. I noticed that I had a couple of students that were very much in the early stages at the college I used to teach at. They went to that convention and it was amazing. They were like, "Oh, Hal Robinson this," and and then they bought new basses and they're practicing all that. It's so cool. And that ISB Connect site is a beautiful site. I'll put a link to that in this, but it's beautiful on this events page. The way it's laid out, it's this really cool. I remember when I was on the board, I was talking about getting something like that going. I'm just so thrilled to see that because it's gorgeous. And there's articles up there. Kristen's writing up there. It's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't say enough about the ISB. Obviously, as a longtime board member and president, like I'm fully invested in that. Like every year I give memberships to a couple of my middle school or high school students because I just think that it's something that's really important. And to start out early on, thinking of yourself as part of a larger community. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, I mean, I have tons of stories, but like every person at the ISB, they've schlepped the bass.
Yeah.
You know, they've had the hassle of not being able to travel with their bass or had the hassle of trying to figure out what car to buy. And I think really more so than maybe any other group except maybe harpists or pianists who have the challenge of I have to play whatever's there. You know, I remember at the Houston convention, I saw Ray Brown unpacking his trunk. And he had two willing guys. I mean, Christian McBride and John Clayton were more than willing to unpack his trunk for him. But he was like, "No, I'm going to play it tonight. I better be able to get it out of the trunk." And just that, seeing that these guys aren't like mythical, you know, like I have 100 records with Ray Brown on it, and here he is. He's unpacking his trunk. He's tuning his own bass. He's warming up his E major scale. Or seeing Ron Carter, you know, schlepping his bass from David Gage's booth or from his shop or something like that. I think there's something about being a bass player. I mean, most of us don't go into it to be like the rock stars. We really go into be like we're the framers, we're the carpenters, we're the brick masons or things like that. We're going to be there. We're going to make you sound good. We're going to make your job easier. And if you say thank you to us or not, at the end of the day, we'll be here tomorrow.
Right.
And I think that comes through like when you're at the convention, like every person you met has possibly gone to a car dealer with his bass to make sure the car he was buying was his bass.
That's
you know, all the jazzers have had a singer call a tune in a bad key that they knew or didn't know and just had to figure out a way to like make it happen.
Yeah. I love that car thing. Yeah, if you that's a lesson you could learn quickly. You've got to make sure that thing can get in there.
Man, and don't buy a bass before you make sure that it fits into your car.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like I know people who had a nice small car, fit their bass really nice, and they were able to buy a new bass, and they realized too late that they were going to have to get a new car to fit their new bass if they wanted it to travel the same way.